So I'd like to welcome our guest before we start. Today we have a very special guest, the newly elected Speaker of the House. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, Mark.
Representing Casada. And you've had a big couple months because you became Speaker of the House, and Donald Trump retweeted you, which is also a big deal, right?
The highlight of my career.
The highlight of your
It's
career.
only
That's
downhill
right.
from here.
Yeah. This is the top. It's going to go down. But we're really glad to have you on. Thanks for joining us. And Justin Owen, our CEO, doesn't really need much introduction. You're on about 90% of these videos, so we should be good with that. So again, if you haven't seen the show before, it's Over-Caffeinated. So what we do is it's kind of a variety show. We say it's like The View, except not terrible. I think we need to get shirts that are made up with
I
like The View, but not terrible. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I could be Megan McCain. But we have different types of people, either celebrities, just important people in the state. It could be politicians, singers, athletes. So we're very lucky to have Speaker Casada today. So we're going to start off with what we do each week. It's the coffee.
Yes.
The show's called Over-Caffeinated. It's a big deal. So this week we have 8th and Roast. Got a nice little bag here. And it is a sweet blue Brazilian coffee with hints of nut, chocolate, and graham cracker. So everyone take a sip here and we'll get our reviews of how it tastes.
So first we inhale.
You inhale, that's right. Not like Bill Clinton.
He didn't inhale.
No, he did not inhale, that's all right. Okay, Justin, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts
First of all,
on
it's
this one?
much better than the pumpkin spice coffee
Agree
that
to
you made
disagree.
me drink last night.
It was fantastic.
So I'm all in. It's a good coffee. Good
Out of 10,
smooth.
you got out of 10 though.
Out of 10, I'd give it like an 8.5.
Okay, now do you taste the graham cracker, the nuts, or chocolate? Or is it
I don't
just
really
kind of a
taste
coffee?
the graham cracker, but I do get a little bit of the chocolate and
It's
a slight nutty flavor, but not too crazy.
It's a
not
3
like
out
the
of 5
hazelnut
beans.
crap you drink after dinner.
Hazelnut coffee is delicious. What are your thoughts on this?
I detect hints of cherry and licorice in the back.
Oh, wow,
But as I
gosh.
swallow it, I do taste the graham cracker.
Was that the whiskey beforehand, or is that the coffee? I can't tell.
But it lays nice on the palate.
Okay. So what do you give it out of 10?
9.
A 9. Okay.
Very
High
good.
graded. I'll say about a 6.5. Just kind of a normal coffee.
He likes weird stuff.
I do like weird. Just generally, I like weird stuff. So we're going to start this, and we're going to talk about sports. So we'll kind of go in there, and we're going to talk about the Titans, who are right across the street there. So they had an interesting season. They made the playoffs last year. This year they missed it by a game and they lost to the Colts. And the question I have is, Mariota was kind of seen to be the savior of this franchise. He's been largely ineffective, and when he's not been ineffective, he's been hurt. If you're the Titans, do you move forward with him as your quarterback, or do you go out and try to get somebody else in the draft or free agency? And we'll start with you, Speaker Casada. What do you think about Mariota?
I would find a line, an offensive line that can protect my quarterback. He gets hurt a lot, but it's because he gets sacked a lot. And so you got to protect your investment.
So you think it's more about the line than him?
do.
So you would give him at least another year to see what he
would.
can improve and just try to improve the offensive line.
He's not a Tom Brady, but he's in the top third, I would say. Has the potential to be in the top third of quarterbacks.
Sure, and he needs some receivers to throw to. That
And he
helps
needs some
too.
receivers
Yes.
to throw to.
Justin, what are your thoughts about the
Yeah, I
Titans?
agree.
You think-
I mean, put a good team around him. He's got the fundamentals if he stays healthy. I think the biggest challenge is not so much his capabilities, but whether he can be in the game. If he's not playing, then obviously he's a wasted, a lost cause for us. And so I think a lot of his conditioning and his ability to stay healthy is important. But if he can, and we get a good O-line around him, get good receivers, I think he has the potential to really be a consistent player. Again, not, like you said, not a Tom Brady, not a GOAT, but definitely has the capacity to put us in the playoffs every year if he's got that team around us.
It feels like every big game he has where he has like 5 touchdowns, he'll go back and it looks like he can't hit the broadside of a barn, though. I think a little consistency would be helpful for him.
Sure.
He shows these flashes, you're like, this guy could be a stud. And then these other games, you're like, this guy looks like me throwing the ball.
But I think
which is
the
not great, I
injuries,
promise.
injuries impact that because he doesn't play a lot of consistent games. He's not in the game a lot.
Well, they have to make the playoffs next year, though. I mean, they should have made it this year, really. So I think this all will determine how they do next year. Yeah. So we're going to move from sports to something a little bit, I guess, more important and in the news, which is the government shutdown. We have heard about this a lot. I mean, it's been shut down for about a month now. So I'm interested from both of you, kind of what your take on the shutdown is, who you think is to blame, and how do we get the government back open? So we'll start with you, Speaker Casada.
And from a state's perspective, this could be an issue. This could be that hurts kind of thing, because about half our budget is federal, and a lot of Tennesseans' income is from the federal government. I do support the president. We need a wall. Most countries in the world have some form of protection and via a wall. It's just the wise thing to do for foreign policy. The Democrats are trying to make this into a political issue. They both going to compromise a little bit and come up with something.
And do you feel like President Trump's kind of made the first step by saying, okay, we'll let the DACA, the people stay here? Yeah, so do you think he's kind of done an olive branch over there?
He has made the first step. Now the Democrats have to make the second step. That's how it works. And they're not playing within the rules, and thus we're shut down.
Are you confident that this will end in the next soon, or do you think it's going to go on for a while?
You know, the reason I have a little confidence, it may, in today's paper, one of the more liberal Democrats on the House has actually reached out to the president. So it tells me there's a little cracks on the Democratic side as well. So they'll come up with something.
Sure. And then, Justin, what do you think? I mean, we have a lot of workers here that are, I mean, they're not getting their paychecks. They're saying TSA people are not getting their paychecks.
I've been terrified to fly.
I know. I actually went. It wasn't bad. I think there was a little bit of a. They really sounded the alarm cry on that. But tell me about who you think, whose fault is this, and how do we get the government back open?
Well, I think, as the speaker said, if the Democrats don't compromise at all, then they're to blame. They're the ones that are stuck in the mud because the president has offered some pretty big concessions, I think, with the DACA stuff and some other things. And so I think he's shown a willingness to compromise. But I think the Democrats are miscalculating this because they see this as a 2020 election issue. Yeah. And they think that people are going to remember that the government was shut down for a month. But frankly, I think, you know, if it opens back up within the next few weeks, people will long have forgotten about that by the time this becomes an election issue. And the president's base, who's focused on getting the wall, if he caved, that would have much deeper ramifications for his political future and Republicans' political future than the Democrats, and a 1 month to 6 week shutdown almost 2 years before an election.
Yeah, I think there's been about 45 election issues that 2 weeks later nobody remembers anyway. So I think they are probably overstating that. So we will see how it goes. But we hope the government opens back up, and we hope the Democrats are willing to come to the table to negotiate with President Trump. Yeah. So on that topic, I think this is really relevant, but let's talk about bipartisanship.
Yes.
So we have the session coming up, and there's a lot of people in the country complaining of a lack of decor and bipartisanship, and both sides seem to have really dug in, and they can't seem to get along anymore. Yeah. So I'm interested, what policies do you think can pass this year's legislative session with bipartisan support? So having not have to be 50-50, but where you can have some Democrats and Republicans come together. What policies are you confident that will take place?
I think there'll be a lot that will come together on. What comes to my mind first is Governor Lee's initiative on addressing recidivism. That's something that both parties needs to be addressed. Because when an individual returns back to prison, they serve their time, they paid their debt, they're out, and about 2/3 of them return back to prison. That's a blow to their family. It's a blow to the community. It's a blow to job creation, wealth creation. No one wins when we have a high recidivism. And Republicans and Democrats will come together on something that I think will be effective in the long term.
Great. And how about you, Justin? Is there any bipartisan issues you see passing this session?
I think that's one. I think that you'll see a lot of bipartisanship. You know, it's weird in the state legislature. It's not like Washington where there's all this gridlock between the parties. You have most issues that are contentious break down among East versus West Tennessee or rural versus urban. It's not really a partisan issue. And in fact, Speaker Casada, kudos to you for naming 2 Democrat chairmen in the legislature, which you got a supermajority of Republicans. You never had to do anything like that, but you extended that olive branch, and I think that's an important thing. So I think there are a number of issues. It's rare, actually, that issues break down on party lines in the state legislature. And I do think the criminal justice stuff is probably one of the most pointed examples because there's still a lot of Republicans who haven't become reform-minded on that issue. I think Governor Lee will help drive people there. But we need the Democrats to stand together with Republicans and support that and show that bipartisanship. So I think that'll be the most glaring example of that. But it's just not as big of an issue as it is in Washington.
Do you think that Tennessee might be an example that the rest of the country could follow in showing more how Democrats and Republicans get along and get stuff passed? It feels like that's just not the case in Washington at all right now.
You know, as I travel the state and attend conferences, most states, bipartisanship is the rule of the day, not the exception. Washington is just a different animal, and I really think it's why our founders were so intent on keeping power at the state level. Because when I take a vote or when I say something, I go home and I hear from my neighbors. If you're in Washington, you can't come home every night, and you represent 6.7 million people in the U.S. Senate. You get detached real quick. In the state politics, you don't. And so that's why we need to keep state politics, state government strong, And we can talk about block grants, but we won't. But that would help devolve that power
Bring
back.
as much of that power back, whether
Yeah.
it's welfare, healthcare. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much that the states have great ideas. They are the laboratories of democracy. And you create bipartisanship because, again, you have to go live under the laws that you pass. Unlike Washington, where everybody stays in Washington so much and they live in that bubble, we need to drive that power back and put it in the hands of part-time legislators who can do something with it.
And states generally have a better, I mean, you're generally forced to balance your budget if you live in a state. They're not
Constitutional
Yeah,
requirement
they
in
don't have to do that in
Tennessee.
D.C. and obviously Nashville apparently don't have to do that either. But either way, hopefully they'll figure out their budget crisis here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So before we get to the really fun questions, we have one more policy question, and this is a huge policy in Tennessee, and that's school choice. So Speaker you've been a long-time supporter of school choice.
Yes.
You've been, I think you've been honored by a lot of school choice organizations being somebody who's stands up for them. So this year, Beacon's going to be advocating for a statewide education savings accounts program.
Yeah.
Is that something you can get on board with? Would you support education savings accounts statewide?
Yeah, in short, yes. Let me say that we cannot continue to deliver education like we have been and expect different results. So we've got to be open-minded and willing to listen to think tanks and academians and mom and dads. And that starts from anything that's not traditional. And then we try it. State government tries something. We fund it. And if we see results, we expand it. If it doesn't produce, we collapse it and look somewhere else. So one of those tools in the toolbox is ESAs. And I think this is the year to do it right here.
Well, and it's National School Choice Week,
National
so a
School
perfect
Choice Week,
time to
that's
talk
right.
about this. And I think you're right. When you give parents options, even within a family, parents have different options for their kids or want different options for their kids. We'll have a video coming out soon. One family, one child is in homeschool, one child is in their traditional public school because that works for that family. So I think giving families those options, even within the same household, is important because every kid learns differently, and ESAs really, they acknowledge that every kid learns differently.
And it's kind of a bipartisan issue too, because you have a really strong support in Memphis, which is certainly not a Republican stronghold.
Yes.
And a lot of the people there want vouchers or school choice or ESAs. So, I mean, this is something where you can really come together and kind of bring both sides, because everyone wants a good education for their kids.
Zip code should not determine the quality of school. The parents and the family should determine what's best for their child.
Well, we couldn't say any better than that, so we'll leave on that one. That was great. So now is the fun part. So we're going to start talking about TV. That's where we're going to start, is what are you watching now? So this is a segment where we ask kind of what show you're watching on Netflix or HBO or, I don't know, the Food Network, whatever you watch, and why our audience should be watching that show. So Justin, do you want to start? So you did what was your weird show that you did?
Below Deck.
Below Deck.
Which is just really trash TV that I was watching last time. You know, I'm not really watching any new shows right now. Kara, my wife, watches a lot of these crime-related shows. There's a new Sherlock show. It's kind of a spin on the old Sherlock Holmes. And
to be clear, not the Will Ferrell movie.
That's right.
Which got the worst reviews.
This is actually an English show.
Okay.
It's kind of in my periphery because I don't really pay attention to it when it's on, but it's on a lot. So I guess subconsciously, that's what I'm watching right now.
Okay, and the accents are easy to understand. Like you can follow. I watch like that Downtown Abbey. I don't even understand half what they're saying.
Yeah, this is like
it's really
day.
strong. Okay, it's not strong accents. Good. Right. So what about you, Representative Casada?
What's the next topic?
Oh man, you don't watch TV?
No, I do. I do.
It's awful. Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, I have a lot of time.
So I do watch NFL football. I enjoy NFL football. So that is my every Sunday. And for the last couple of weeks, it's been Saturday and Sunday.
That's right. You get to expand it.
The other thing I like to follow quite a bit is Rick Steves' Europe. It's a travel show. Yep. I love it. And America Heartland, which is another travel show. And it just shows how exciting my life is when I watch travel shows.
So Rick Steves has great ideas about where to travel.
He does.
So what is the point? They tell you where to go, or they follow somebody?
It is, and so it tells you some ideas on how to travel, where to go, what to do when you get there.
And off the beaten path stuff. It's not touristy and stuff like that.
Last Sunday was Scotland, and there was a couple of islands that he took you to, that Rick Steves took you to, and it caught my attention. So when I grow up, I'm going to go there.
That's good. Maybe we can do a show like that in like Tennessee, where we're like Jackson and all the other great places that people want to travel.
That's another show I want. Tennessee Crossroads. I like Tennessee Crossroads. So that's my life.
Okay, perfect. Well, before we ask them this or that, which will be a question where we can kind of figure out what their preferences are, these two things, I'm going to complain. So this is kind of 90% of my life is complaining. And this is my what is bothering you section. So right now, this is going to draw the ire of about 95% of the people here, I think, and everybody who watches us. But I speak the truth. I don't know what to do. So I am going to trash the SEC, and I'll give you guys a chance to respond when we're done, but the Southeastern Conference, I guess we'll call it a conference. So they've been overrated for the last few years. I think that most people can agree. Alabama has been really good, and they've won a lot of championships. But elsewhere, the conference has not done well. This is the third straight year they've been terrible in bowl games. They went 6-6 this year, despite being favored in 10 of the 12 games. So we saw Baylor beat Vandy, not a great Baylor team. We see Texas annihilated a favored Georgia team that everyone was saying deserves to be in the playoffs. You saw Alabama just get murdered in the national championship game versus Clemson. And then you see Mississippi State, teams like that. So all the SEC faithful, all we keep hearing about how's the SEC the best conference in football, how we need 2 playoff teams, they're great, they have the hardest schedule. They're not. It's a very average conference, and I'm done hearing that. Alabama is good, okay? Alabama's good. Everyone else is just mediocre, okay? SEC third moving forward. So I don't want to hear about how hard the SEC schedule is. I don't want to hear about any of that moving forward until they prove that they can do that again. Now look, 2012, 2013, they were great, right? You had Florida, Tennessee was somewhat relevant at that point, more so than now. But at this point, we need to look at what the current situation is, and the SEC is garbage. Response, go ahead.
What a long rant. This is a step above your Nickelback rant that we did with Governor Haslam. But ultimately, look, the SEC has won far more national championships than any other conference. It's going to continue to be a powerhouse conference. Yes, there are going to be years where we don't do so well in bowl games. When Alabama doesn't win the national championship, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But they're still a great conference. And just because you don't like them because you're a Yankee doesn't mean that you can distort history.
Is that offensive? I don't know if that's offensive.
Doesn't mean that you can distort history and pretend that the SEC is not consistently the best conference in college football.
I must join with Justin on this. 1 year does not determine a reign. We've had one bad year. 19 was not, but most conferences would be tickled with the 2019 record. It wasn't the greatest, but it was good. Top 3.
But listen, we're talking about championships. Alabama won a lot of championships, fine, but it's the conference strength from top to bottom. And the bottom of the SEC is terrible. And even the middle, I mean, you're seeing them lose to mediocre Big 12, Big 10 teams. So I'm interested to see what happens next year. I will say that I was wrong if they do better. I just don't expect it because I've seen a trend of the SEC going down. So that's it for my rant. He hears it about 90% of the day. So
yes,
I say this a lot.
Everybody on our team hears this rant every
not
other
as much
day.
as the Nickelback one. But okay, so we're going to do a this or that section. So I'm going to ask you a question, and you just pick your preference. You can explain if you want, or you can just answer it. Okay. So hot coffee or iced coffee?
Hot coffee.
Hot coffee. I'll drink iced coffee in the summer.
Yeah, in the summer it gets a little. I start sweating a little bit. That's So iced coffee only once in a while. Okay, Kelly Clarkson or Carrie Underwood?
Carrie Underwood.
For sure, she's a lot hotter.
Whoa! Okay, I did not know that was going to happen. Okay, but yes, she's also pretty talented, I think.
Yeah,
and
she's got a great voice.
She's married to the guys on the Predators,
Fisher,
right?
yeah.
And that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Carrie Underwood.
Prettier campus, Belmont or Vanderbilt?
I like quaint, so I'm going with Belmont.
Me too. I like Belmont. It's different. You know, you don't have as many brick buildings. It's kind of the old, Roman-looking architecture. I like it.
Do you think you guys are going to disagree on something today, or just be on the same page on everything?
We're always on the same page. You don't disagree with the speaker.
No, that's smart. Yeah, it's good to let him go first and then
That's
answer
right.
whatever. How about downtown Franklin or downtown Nashville?
Well, now I'm biased.
I'm trying to help your constituents here.
Yeah, thank you. Downtown Franklin, head and shoulders. Head and shoulders.
Well, someone who lives in Nashville, I like Nashville's diversity more and more options in downtown Nashville. But downtown Franklin's fun. It's nice and quaint. There's some nice restaurants. It's a fun little place to visit. It just takes a long way to get there when you live in East Nashville.
Seems like a lot less crazy people on the street in downtown Franklin too. But yes. House of Cards or Scandal? If you watch either of those shows, I don't know if they're Netflix shows. So, Justin, do you want to go?
I want to go House of Cards. Kara watched the Scandal. I've seen a few episodes, so I can't say that I know a whole lot about it. But both are good. House of Cards jumped the shark, but old school House of Cards, definitely.
Kerry Washington's like the best looking woman in the world, so I think that's reason to watch Scandal enough. But what's your choice?
I would definitely go with early House of Cards.
Okay.
Early House of Cards.
Now, did you watch the last season with just his wife as president or not?
I did not.
Okay, I didn't either.
I gave up like 3 years ago.
I gave me too.
But those first 2 seasons, you remember like when they came out, you used to watch them in I watched them in a day.
Yes.
And Sunday, I'm like, I can do 12 episodes, and it was incredible. And obviously the Spacey thing really hurt the show, probably.
It's like Walking Dead. It got a little bit too far out there.
Every show should stop after 3 seasons. That should be the new rule.
Except Seinfeld.
Right.
And The Office. I think it'd be dumb to do that. But okay, now here's a good question. It's going to be personal to both of you. Better mascot, Big Red or Lightning? So you went to Western Kentucky. You went to Middle Tennessee State. What's the better mascot? They're both kind of weird-looking mascots, but fun.
Big Red is quirky.
Yeah.
but it's distinguished. Distinguished quirky. Distinguished quirky.
You mean the big weird red balls
with the big mouth?
Okay.
They put on the opponent's. Yeah.
I think we have different definitions of distinguished, but okay. I will take that.
It's like the cousin of the Grimace. Is that the?
Oh yeah, the Flyers thing. Yeah. So you take Big Red.
Take Big Red.
I'm gonna go with Lightning. Got to hang with your alma
So
mater.
what is that? Is it like a unicorn or
Yeah,
something?
it's like a unicorn with lightning coming out at
a blue
sides.
unicorn with lightning.
Yeah, it's not well thought out. But.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, neither of them have been good in basketball for a while, so. Okay, so now we're almost done here. We're gonna ask you a couple questions, Speaker Casada, just about what to look forward to in the next session. So the first one is you've been in state government for 17 years.
Yes.
You've done a lot of things, but this is gonna be your time as speaker. So you're basically in charge of the whole house there. What is like the one or two things that you think really need to be fixed? That you think that you are kind of going to come in and be your number one goal coming in here?
First, we got to say there's so many things we're doing right in Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely.
From tax policy, we're very low taxed, low debt, which means our cost of living is very low. On and on and on. The chinks that we have and we need to be addressed is mental health and the opioid substance abuse. And it takes an investment to tackle those. And I think it's time I think the governor and the legislature wants to tackle those. So that is top of the list on my list.
Okay, and then Justin, is there anything that you think that, the speaker's led in a lot of things. What are issues that you think are going to be big in this session?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, educational choice, expanding options for families to improve our education is huge. Healthcare is a big one. The opioid crisis ties into that, but getting control of our healthcare and our welfare system, pulling those decisions back from the federal government, I think will be important. And I think we've got good leadership in the state. Once that happens, if it happens, that we can do a lot better job than Washington at fixing those problems.
Okay, and then the last question kind of goes to your last point, is that Tennessee's just doing a really good job in a lot of ways.
We are.
So if there's one area that you think needs the most improvement, so one area you say, well, no, we're still good, but we could improve. What area is that? Do you think it's education? Is it something else?
I still will stick with mental health.
Okay.
I do. We've got individuals that are a danger to themselves, to the families, to the community. We need to address that with long-term care. The thing we want to continue is the upward trajectory of education and business and jobs and wealth creation. The thing we want to address is mental health and substance abuse.
Okay, that's great. Well, that's all we have for this week's show, but we really appreciate you being on, Speaker Casada. Congratulations again on the recent election, and we look forward to working with you and seeing what you do there at the legislature.
I appreciate the Beacon Center. You are a wealth of knowledge, and we need you. So keep it up.
Yeah, he's the wealth of knowledge. I don't know anything. So, yes, but thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next month. We have a real special guest. We can't announce it yet, but we're very excited about it, so stay tuned.